sides and they all meet. My angles add up to 360.
Have I got a joke for you? How do you know that a right angle is super smart? It's got 90 degrees. Get it? Like when you graduate from college and you get your degree, ask a math teacher. I don't know. They'll think it's funny. I promise. Guess what we're up to today? We're categorizing quadrilaterals. So far, we've talked about the big category of quadrilaterals. We've talked about parallelograms and how their sides, left and right, top and bottom, travel in the same direction and will never meet. And we talked about the rhombus. Rhombus has 4 equal sides, and it is also a parallelogram, but the sides are always, always equal. Today, we've got one more category to talk about, rectangles. Guess who's back to help us? You got it, the smartest pizza you ever met, Za.
So now let's think of rectangle. And you might have heard the word rectangle in the past, but let's think a little bit more about what makes a rectangle. So a rectangle is going to be a parallelogram, but that by itself does not make it a rectangle. So for example, this right over here is a rectangle. Why is it? Well, it's definitely a parallelogram. This side and that side are parallel. They'll never intersect. And this side and this side are parallel. They're never going to intersect if you kept going on and on and on, or they're never going to cross each other. But what makes it a rectangle? It's definitely a parallelogram, but what makes it, why do we use the word rectangle? Well, one way to think about it is the way that they come together at the corners. So in a rectangle, the things come into, I guess you could call them square corners, and that's called a right angle. That's called a right angle right over there. So this is what makes a rectangle. It's a parallelogram where all the corners are right angles. You could put a little square there if you want to think about it that way. So for example, this right over here would not be a rectangle. Why? Because you can't, if you put a square here, notice, that does not, a square doesn't fit in the corners the way that it fits right over here. That you have, the square does not fit over here. This is a parallelogram, but not a rectangle. A rectangle is a parallelogram that has square corners. But what about our square? Is a square a rectangle? Well, let's draw it out. Well, let's think about it. A square, opposite sides are parallel. We've already said it's a parallelogram. And a square has, the corners are square. That's where, when people say make a square corner, that's where it comes from. The corners are square. They are at right angles. So the square is a rectangle. So the square is a really interesting quadrilateral because a square falls into all of these categories. A square is a square. It's a rhombus. It's the type of rhombus where the corners are right angles, or you could say where the corners are square. A square is also a rectangle. It's a parallelogram where the corners are right angles, where they are square. A square is definitely a parallelogram, and everything we've talked about is a quadrilateral.
Thanks again for your help, Za. Where are you going? You're going to go to the cafeteria and grab lunch? Oh, I don't know if that's a great idea, man. It's pizza day. All right, so today we learned all about rectangles. The important thing to remember about rectangles is that they have 4 sides always, and every single angle is the same. What do we call that angle? A right angle or a square angle, and it measures 90 degrees. If I added up 90 plus 90 plus 90 plus 90, I would get 360. So rectangles are quadrilaterals, right? Great, you guys did an awesome job. So glad, I hope you enjoyed all of the videos. I gotta run, because I've gotta get to that cafeteria before somebody eats Za for lunch. Hey, hold the door.
Classifying reality.